Hi guys, welcome back to my channel. My name is Yeti from Earthly Plates, and in today's video we are going to be prepping for a birthday dinner party that I'm having with some family members. And I'm going to start off with some beef cheeks that we are going to be cooking all day in the crock pot. We're going to start off by removing any fat from the outside of the meat, because that will not have time to render off in the cooking process, and that will just become rubbery and it's not going to be good in the final product. So I'm taking the time, cutting any of it off that I don't want, and it was actually well worth it to do this step. It's not a process that I enjoy doing, but for this cut of meat it's definitely worth it. Now the next step is to salt and pepper them. I forgot, so you'll see I'll do that afterwards. But I've got a cast iron skillet that is steaming hot. I added some oil, waited until it coated the entire bottom of the pan, and now I am putting it into the pan. Now remember that I didn't salt it and pepper it, so I'm starting with the side that is facing down on the skillet right now, so that I can season that side before it gets locked in from the caramelization that I'm doing over here. And I'm going to keep on flipping it as necessary. Next up, I am prepping some vegetables that will be going in the sauce and will be sauteed in the pan once the meat is done. So I'm starting with an onion and some garlic. And we're going to dice it up, and the garlic will get minced up. But while I am dicing and mincing, let me tell you about tonight's dinner. So in my family, we have quite a few September birthdays, and all of them are females. So I decided to go ahead and make a dinner party and make a ladies' night. It was really a lot of fun. We were all so excited for this, and I had so much fun prepping for it, cooking for it, planning for it. And you'll see I put together what I think is a beautiful tablescape and some delicious food. We had lots of fun, good times, and the food was delicious. And like I said, this is a dinner party with family members, and some of them were kind enough to offer and bring some food. So not all the cooking was on me tonight, which was also very helpful. It gave me time to just chill and relax in the middle of the day and take things easy. And I wasn't in the kitchen all day long to get this dinner party pulled together. But one family member offered to bring mashed potatoes that the cheek meat will be served over. Another family member offered to bring the appetizer, which is a hummus cracker vegetable platter, which surprisingly was devoured. We all loved it. We actually ended up eating it after dinner, after the dessert, when we were playing some games. We were munching on that, and it was so good. Now that I have the onions and garlic ready, I'm going to start prepping the rest of the vegetables. So I have here some celery from the garden that I have blanched and frozen. So I just removed it from the freezer. I let the excess water drain off, and I just chopped it into small chunks, and I'm measuring it out to make sure that I have enough. Recipe calls for a half a cup. Now I have a peeled carrot over here that I am going to dice up, and I'm going to use the entire one carrot. It's more than the recipe called for, but I'm using the full amount. Now guys, I forgot to say, but if you're interested in making any of these recipes, I'll have them linked or typed up down below so that you can make these as well. These dishes were all so perfectly delicious. The meat is done now. I'm going to remove it from the skillet, and I have a plate that I'm putting it onto. I'm going to let it rest. I'm gonna add some more oil to the pan. I'm gonna lower the heat. I'm gonna add the onions and garlic and let that saute for a few minutes until the onions are translucent, the garlic is fragrant, all the yummy stuff, basically. Over here you can see that the onions have picked up some of the color from the meat that it had left on the pan. So I'm going to gently scrape it, try to release some of those garlic that's stuck to the pan. And I'm adding the celery and carrot, and we're going to let this saute for a few more minutes before we move on to the next step. And I'm just going to keep on mixing it every few minutes to make sure that it is caramelizing evenly. Now the vegetables are ready for the next step, so I'm just going to add that to the crock pot. I'm going to scrape it all in there, and I'm going to lay it flat on the bottom so it forms like a bed. And now I'm going to lay the meat on top of that. And I'm going to let any excess juices that have accumulated on the plate, I'm going to add that to the crock pot as well, just for additional flavor. Now we are back to the skillet. I am measuring out 1 cup of wine. And this will do two things. First of all, it will help scrape up any brown bits that are on the bottom of the pan, which that will just add a lot more flavor to the sauce. And we'll reduce this to get rid of the alcohol. And like that, we'll just stay with the good flavor of it. Once this is about a third to a quarter of what it was, which I believe we're at that point already, we're going to take this and we're going to put it over top of the meat. Now we're going to add some salt and pepper, which is just to spice the sauce, not the meat. We're going to add some beef broth, which is actually some homemade beef broth, along with some bay leaves and some thyme leaves that I took from our front landscape. I'm going to let this cook for 8 to 10 hours on low. So right now we're making a taco salad. I'm making some crispy tortilla strips to add as a topping for the salad. So we're starting off, just going to cut them into strips. Now I'm going to transfer these to a cookie sheet lined with parchment paper. I forgot to say earlier that one of my sister-in-laws are helping me with the taco salad. I came up with the idea, but she is the one that is doing most of the prep work. I am just doing a couple things. Okay, I'm going to top this with a little bit of oil and some salt, and we're going to toast these together. And then we're going to bake this on 400 for 10 to 14 minutes until these are nice and golden and crispy. Now we're moving on to the taco salad, and my sister-in-law is starting with the prep. She's getting some radishes ready, cutting all the tops and the bottoms, and she's going to cut it thinly on the mandolin so that you can get a nice, consistent, even thin cut. Now for the taco salad, I couldn't find a recipe that I liked. So I took a few different ones and I put it together, and it came out delicious. The best salad I've ever had so far. It was really good. And the reason why I decided to go with another filling protein was because the cheek meat I had in my freezer, I was trying to free up some space for myself. and I knew it's not going to be enough to feed everyone. So two meat options was great. We each nibbled a little bit of this, a little bit of that. Next up is some lettuce that she is cutting into bite-sized pieces, and she's going to put that into the bowl as well. She had cut up 2 heads of lettuce, and that was way too much for the salad because we have a lot more stuff that will be going in. So the rest of it she put into a bag into the fridge, and we enjoyed it another time. Now we're adding some red cabbage, some tomatoes that are going to be cut in half, we're going to cut up the jalapeno and some avocado as well. The jalapeno was kind of big, so that's why she cut it in half. But if you have a smaller jalapeno, you can just cut it into rings. And the avocado was perfect ripeness, so she was able to cut it into cubes instead of slices. If the avocado is too soft, I would suggest cutting it into slices so that it doesn't become a mush when you're tossing the salad. Because the dressing also has avocado, and I didn't want that to become one mush with the dressing. So I removed the pit for her. She struggled a little bit. That's my little trick that I do. I just whack my knife into the pit, I twist it, and remove it. Now she's going to start making the taco meat. So we're back in the cast iron skillet. We're adding some oil, and she's going to add in the meat. Here I'm showing her that the ripples in the oil, as you can see, that is telling me that the pan is hot and that the oil is getting hot as well. So for the meat, she's going to add in the meat, and before she starts breaking it up, that it should be little pieces in the salad, she's adding all the spices. So she's putting a tablespoon of chili powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of garlic powder, a 1/4 teaspoon of onion powder, 1/4 teaspoon of red pepper flakes, 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, 1.5 teaspoons of cumin, 1 teaspoon of salt, and 1 teaspoon of black pepper. And then she's using a potato masher to break it up and incorporate the spices. And the recipe says that to brown this takes about 25 to 30 minutes. It took us probably around 20 minutes, and it was beautiful, crispy meat. She managed to break it up into tiny little pieces, and it was perfect. Crunchy, juicy, flavorful meat. And here we go. This is what it's looking like at the end. Gorgeous color, sizzling away. It was perfect. Next up, we're working on the dressing, and she's starting by adding 2 cups of fresh cilantro in the food processor, along with a clove of garlic, a 1/4 cup of fresh lime juice, 2 teaspoons of maple syrup, or you can use honey, 1/2 teaspoon of ground coriander, 1/2 teaspoon of sea salt, and 1/2 cup extra virgin olive oil, and actually also 1 avocado. And she's going to blend it up until it's nice and smooth. So I forgot to show that we put in a can of black beans into the salad as well. And now I'm covering it with some saran wrap to go into the fridge until we're ready to eat. I'm going to put the dressing and the tortilla chips on top. And right before dinner, I'll toast it all together. And this is ready to go. We're going to make a berry lemonade. So we're going to start by weighing out 100 grams of blueberries and 100 grams of raspberries in the bowl of a food processor. Now in here we're going to add 2 tablespoons of sugar and we're going to blend it up. I didn't blend this for too long, and in hindsight I should have let it become just like a puree. I left it still with some chunks in it. I believe it would have been way better had I blended it. I've got a pitcher here. I'm going to take the berry mixture. We're going to pour it in here. Next up, I cut up some lemons, 2 lemons into wedges. The recipe actually called for limes. I went to the store today to get some last minute things. They didn't have it. And when I did my shopping last week, they didn't have it either. So we're going to make do with lemons. Next up, I have here a handful of basil that I harvested from the garden just now. It's probably more than I need, but I'm going to add all this. And then we're going to top it all with 1 liter of seltzer or club soda. I'm going to mix it because it seems to have settled. I had another bottle of seltzer in my fridge. I decided to add that as well so I can fill up the jar. Here I have a bag full of green beans that we harvested from the garden over the last week and a half. I'm just going to trim off the tops of them and I'm going to put them into my salad spinner and clean it like that. Now we're laying them out on the cookie sheet lined with parchment paper, and we're going to set it in the fridge and let it like that. It's ready for when we want to roast it right before dinner. I didn't want to salt or put oil on it yet, but I didn't want it to draw out any extra moisture. I wanted the green beans to stay crispy, so we're just prepped the most that we could in advance. And here I'm showing you the tablescape. I had so much fun setting this, buying all the stuff, collecting it, putting it together, and I loved the vibe of it. Everyone, when they walked in, they were like, oh wow. So I like setting a nice table, so that felt good. Oh my god, this is so soft. Oh, yum. It's falling apart. Wow. I'm gonna remove the thyme leaves and the bay leaves. I had to leave my reaction in there for you guys. Next up, we have to blend up the vegetables with the sauce to make a gravy. I figured that it has very little surface area and it would splatter a lot. You do this with an immersion blender. So I transferred it to a different pot, and again, in hindsight, I should have done it either in a tall container or a jar or something like that. It would have been a lot easier. You want to blend it up until the color becomes nice and light brown. Now we're going to put this on the stove top and we're going to let this simmer on medium high until the color of it turns dark brown again. Then we're going to taste it to make sure that we have the right amount of salt and pepper. If not, we'll adjust it. We'll add the meat back in and we're going to let it sit in here on a low flame until we're ready to eat. For the dessert, I'm going to make a quick and easy apple tart. I'll serve some ice cream over top, drizzled with some caramel sauce. Now to make the apple tart, I first clean the apples because we're not peeling it. I'm going to core it. I'm going to start with 2 first. Actually, I will go ahead and make 3 apples right away. One of them had a blemish. I'm going to remove that. And now I'm going to cut them into thin slices and put them into the bowl over here. In here I'm going to add a 1/4 cup of packed brown sugar. Then I'll add a pinch of salt and 1 teaspoon of lemon juice. I'm going to mix this all together and we'll let it sit for a few minutes to let the sugar dissolve and become sort of like a syrup to coat the apples. Now while we're waiting for this to sit, I have here the green beans that have been prepped. I am going to drizzle some olive oil, salt and pepper. We're going to roast it on 425 until I like the doneness of it. So it's starting to brown a little bit on the edges. If I remember correctly, that took all of 15 minutes to get it perfectly done. Now that this has cooked down a little bit and thickened and the color is dark brown again, I'm gonna give it a taste test so I know how much salt and pepper to add before I start off adding the spices. So here I go. I'm adding the salt and pepper. I'll mix it in, taste it again, and once it's good, I'm gonna add the meat back inside and let it sit there and stay warm until we are ready to eat. This is the green beans all plated up. They came out delicious, crunchy, juicy. I put the tongs in there so everybody can take however much they want. I am tasting one. The chef has to taste it before we put it out. And it was really, really good. Fresh, delicious from the garden. Is just so good. And the last thing to prep is the apple tart. So I have a piece of puff pastry that I am going to cut in half. And I'm going to separate the two halves. And I'm going to start laying down the apples on it. And as I'm doing that, I'm going to try to leave all the syrup that the brown sugar lemon juice mixture has created. I'm going to try to leave that in the bowl. And so that it doesn't weigh down the puff pastry and it should be able to puff up while it bakes. This was very simple dessert, really flavorful and delicious, and the presentation top notch. And it takes almost no effort at all. The guest is almost here, so we're gonna bring together the salad now. I'm gonna add the meat in here. So we're gonna start with about half of the dressing, and we're gonna toast this together and see if we need more. I think we could add more. I think I'll do the whole thing. Now we're topping it with tortilla sticks that we prepared earlier today. And this will add a delicious crunch on top of the salad. So quickly, before the people start arriving, let me show you what we have so far. So I have the green beans here, and I have the salad here. And the meat is going to be served over mashed potatoes, which one of my sister-in-laws are bringing. So we have to wait for that. And then we're going to have, for the appetizer, we're having a hummus vegetable cracker plate, which also one of my sister-in-laws are bringing. The dessert, I'll try to show you when that is ready, what it looks like. I am very excited for this. If you've made it this far into the video, I really appreciate you watching it. Hit the like button and consider subscribing so you can see when I make more of these type of parties. Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to seeing you next time.